Okay, here we go. So my name is Karen Maynard. I'm the Public Education Supervisor for the Waste Management District, and which goes along with Metro's Solid Waste Division under Public Works. So it's kind of a mouthful. And Moon, Public Education Coordinator that works with me, and so we're happy to be here to talk to you all about recycling. And I have done this presentation with each webinar series, but I always tweak it a little bit and add, and if something kind of comes up that seems pertinent, I'll add it in. So you can always look back at other recordings, but they're basically the same. But I am glad to see you all here today. And we're going to talk about how to recycle right. Okay. So the first thing that we always want to mention is that recycling is not really the first thing that should come to mind when it comes to waste. For an individual, just a person, reduce, reuse, recycle is the old mantra, and that is the order we should be thinking in. So it's always best to think about how to reduce your waste. Try not to have so much waste in the first place. Then reuse things if you can, and then recycle past that if you can. And that in this hierarchy, this is actually something I've updated based on zero waste. So when you're thinking more on a larger scale, it might be that you want to bring product design and packaging and bring some manufacturers into the discussion and actually rethink and redesign, and that would be even before reduce. So, and then of course past that, it's how the waste is managed. And for us at home, we may have the ability to recycle. We may not have composting available to us so easily, and recovering materials in some way through those processes, and then of course landfilling. So at least here locally, that's kind of the end if as far as the we don't have incineration and waste to energy programs here. So the last resort is landfilling. So let's Diane, you're not muted, by the way. Anyway, okay. So I'm going to move on from the hierarchy and talk for just a minute about why recycle. So back to, we're going to try to reduce our waste. We're going to try to reuse things. But when it comes to having waste, we do want to recycle, and this is why. So here's just kind of some basics as far as we're still left with some waste, so let's conserve resources. Recycling conserves energy as opposed to always producing products from virgin materials. It reduces pollution, and a big deal is for us to save landfill space and conserve that, keep our landfill lasting as long as possible, and recycling provides more jobs. Now, here in Louisville, it can get a little complicated on where to recycle. So I usually try to go over this a little bit to help people understand, it kind of depends on where you live as to what's available to you. So as far as household recycling, everybody has an opportunity to recycle. You might have a curbside service, and that is automatic for you if you live in the urban services district. So there in the picture, that cart and bin are what our recycling containers look like if you live within the urban services district. That's the former city limits that has waste collection through Public Works. But you might also have curbside collection if you either live in a home rule city that provides a certain company comes to pick up your recycling, or maybe an HOA has a recycling program as part of your waste collection. Or if you live in the unincorporated area where you are subscribing to your trash service, and you can add recycling if you choose to. That a lot of times costs a little bit more. Sometimes that's a barrier, but But those haulers are required to at least offer that to you. They can charge you as much as they want, but they do require that. So, and everyone living in Jefferson County is required to have trash service. So if you live maybe in an apartment complex or something, and all that they have for you is a garbage dumpster, the great thing about that, for what we provide, is drop-off recycling locations. So there's some that are just, they're kind of scattered around town. Our website has a map that shows where they are, and some are not staffed, they're just self-service, and there's 3 of them that are full service and there's staff there. Normally they help take everything out of your car. Right now, because of COVID regulations, it's more of a self-service there, but there's still staff there you can talk to make sure you know what you're doing. And then there's recycling of special items, because not everything belongs in your curbside or household recycling, even if it is recyclable. So a few examples there. I just realized that I removed the picture of latex paint because that program is not happening currently, but I did not take it off the words. So instead, I have scrap metal there to show as another example. But plastic shopping bags, they can't be recycled anywhere except back at the stores. I know at some point during COVID, a lot of those bins were removed, but I believe from what I've seen, they're pretty much back. So recycle those plastic bags, but again, try not to get them in the first place. Electronics, there's a lot of electronics recycling programs. We offer that. The city does at Meriwether for drop-off. But some of the stores allow people to drop off electronics too. Some are buyback programs, cell phones and stuff. A lot of times you trade it in now, mail it back or whatever. And then of course, metal is a big thing. You can take scrap metal somewhere else. You don't want to put everything in your curbside bin, but that doesn't mean it's not available to be recycled. And I wanted to mention, just kind of while I had you guys here, about a new program that we started last year. We have pop-up drop-off events. And last year we were meaning to start it in March, but everybody knows that everything changed last year in March. But we were able to have 3 events, one in September, October, and November. And this year we're planning to do all 9. March to November is the goal, to have these pop-up drop-off events. And so it's just another way for you to be able to get rid of some waste. And everything listed in blue there is recycled. I've got yard waste in brown because it's composted. And then prescription medication, they have their own way of disposing that. We work with the sheriff's office on that. And then junk items is landfilled. So I wanted to just kind of share with you that those are going to happen all around the county once per month. But the first one for 2021 is March 27th in the Southwest area. So be looking for those as just a kind of a one-stop shop for you to get rid of some stuff if you need to. All right, so as we move forward with talking about how to recycle right, and for this, I'm mostly talking about the residential, like household recycling. There's a lot of questions, as you can see, that I get a lot, like, do these items really get recycled? What about China? What should I be recycling? All the details about how to prepare your recycling, and why did I read this online about, or I could have recycled this where I used to live, but now I can't, or whatever. So those are some of the big questions I get a lot, and I believe it's important to kind of understand first where our local recycling material goes, how it's sorted and processed, and understanding more about the process of getting it made into new stuff. So this is an important kind of word for our recycling business is material recovery facility, and we call it a MRF for short. And here in Louisville, we have one MRF, and so pretty much I can say right now, all of our residential recycling is taken to Westrock Recycling. So that is our MRF. It's off Fern Valley Road. It really exists. I've been there. At some point, Rumpke customers, they have a big MRF in Cincinnati. And so Rumpke had been taking a lot of their material or all of their household recycling that they collect to the facility in Cincinnati. And it makes it confusing because their rules are a little different there. But currently, the Rumpke's actually cost savings and everything for lately has been taking everything to Westrock. So currently it's all going there. And what I'm going to do is show you some videos of that facility. It's at the time I took these videos, it was called QRS Recycling, but it is currently Westrock Recycling. And so I'm going to kind of go through what happens there. So these are just short little clips that keep repeating. So at the beginning of this clip, you'll see the truck on the right, that blue truck. It's from Republic. It collected recycling around town at homes that have their service, and they came and they're dumping all of the recycled material out here. And then Westrock, it's then their job to sort it out, and it's basically scooping that up and starting it into this sorting process. And so that material, if you kind of imagine that truck scooping it and dropping it beyond where they are, there's some turning mechanisms that kind of help sift it through and make it a little bit loose. And it comes out onto this conveyor belt. And these employees are basically getting the first look at the material. A lot of the sorting is automated, but they're kind of grabbing off some things first that might be detrimental to the process. And this clip that I have, what you're mostly seeing is plastic bags. So if they can tell a plastic bag has some recycled actual recycling in it, you can kind of see them in some cases kind of shaking it and trying to open it up and getting the bag off. So this, I'll go over some of our little rules, but this is one of them, is trying to tell people to stop bagging their recyclables. Number one, you aren't sure that they always get it emptied. And number two, it's just kind of extra, just an extra step that they don't need to do. So if they see any other things on there that could be bad, they try to pull that off. Some of it's going to be landfilled, some of it's going to be recovered separately. They'll recycle as much of that plastic film as they can. So once it gets past them, this is why they're pulling off the plastic bags, because you can kind of tell in the turning mechanism toward the bottom of the screen, there's some things wrapped. It's kind of like a vacuum cleaner. If you suck up a shoestring or something, it sort of gets caught up. So they're trying to keep all that stuff out. But this is a big filter, and the cardboard is riding on top. Small materials going to go down and into another sorting area. But that's the automation of it is pretty cool to see how it moves these things along. And there's people along the way that kind of watch and make sure that the machine is doing what it's supposed to do. But this is where the cardboard ends up. Once it's just cardboard, it's being dropped into a big pile. And they'll be moving that into the area to make bales of just cardboard. So that's the goal here, is to separate all the recycled materials, which in our case is single stream. So that means it's all in one stream. And then here at this facility, it's being separated into its different commodities. So another one that I can show you exactly getting separated to by itself is aluminum. We've already gotten containers separated here, but there's plastic and things in there too. And so it's going through an eddy current. The eddy current makes the aluminum jump. And on the other side, you can see where it's jumping to. So as it jumps, it kind of jumps over that wall and ends up in a big pile. And you can see some of the bales right there in the foreground. So again, we're at the point of this is all aluminum cans, and so we're ready to, they'd be ready to bale it and squash it into a big block, and then it can be shipped to their buyers. This is just another area. There's conveyors moving things all around. This one's kind of bumpy, so the three-dimensional items are going to fall down while the two-dimensional things like paper can ride on top. And so it's just another way of using, engineering to get that material separated by machines. Eventually, they'll be moving those into the baler. This one at this moment is baling cardboard. So it wraps wire around it really tight and pushes that out. So when they have all the bales, and there's some photos. The one on the top left is showing bales being put into a train car, which is right there. When I was standing there looking at the baler, if I looked to my left, that's what I would see. And so the train track is right there. Train is by far the most efficient way to transport. They do, of course, use trucks as well. But our material is staying right here in our region and in the United States. So that comes up a lot because people hear about what's going on with China banning material. It has an indirect effect on everyone, if not direct. So we weren't shipping stuff overseas to begin with. So that made it where the markets just kind of went down as far as what you get. The market was saturated, so it's an indirect effect. And again, Westrock Recycling, a lot of times I say we. I don't work for Westrock. The city just contracts Westrock for processing their material, but we have a good relationship with them, and they share a lot of info with us about the material because they know we, as the city, want to be transparent. So this is some statistics about how much material goes through their facility. I don't think it's not all from residential, but it is just kind of the basics about how much they process in a month and where it goes and what it's being made into. So we have a little bit of plastics. At our facility, they don't actually sort every type of plastic. They just bale plastic together and send it on to another facility in Missouri that then has the equipment, optical sensors, and that can read what type of plastic it is and kind of separate it out differently and sell it then to a manufacturer. So here at these sorting facilities, they're not making any new products. That sometimes kids especially often think that it's the same place, but this is sort of an in-between. And then a lot of glass, we send that to a Rumpke facility in Dayton. And cardboard, Westrock actually is also a paper company. They own a lot of paper mills, so they're going to create more cardboard and paper. A lot of it goes to Kimberly-Clark and another Westrock facility in Michigan. So it's just kind of cool to see where our material is going. Okay, so here's the question. Does it all get recovered? So that's actually a picture I took of the floor during a tour I was at, where, every once in a while somebody's kind of push brooming stuff over into the corner. So this is some stuff that's not getting recovered. It's not getting recycled. It doesn't mean that it's not recyclable. I mean, you can see paper shreds. There's plastic, lids and straws. It's all recyclable material, but it's small and it was loose. And for whatever reason during the process, it just didn't make it. It fell through all the big machines. So a little bit does end up just on the floor, not recovered. And that's another reason. There are some rules that we'll get into, so you can kind of keep that in mind as we talk about some of the ways to prep your recycling. Okay, so I threw in this slide because not too long ago, I was getting a lot of questions from folks who had read an NPR article, and then there was a documentary that went along with it called Plastic Wars that was done by PBS. And it's an absolute fantastic documentary, and the article is great too. But I believe that sometimes it can give everybody the wrong impression. So I did want to just kind of bring that to our attention, especially if some of you on here have heard of this. The quote at the top, "No more than 10% of plastic produced has ever been recycled." That's said in that documentary and another one that I've seen, and it's said so quickly, and what people tend to hear is that only 10% of my recycling that I put out, the plastic I recycle, gets recycled, which is not true. That is not what it says. So on the right, this is the quote that came along with it at or during Plastic Wars. So the idea is that plastic has a really dark history as far as the plastic industry and how it began and how they really wanted people to buy it. And so that's what a lot of the documentary is about. And I think it's important to understand that. It's also important to understand that plastic is cheaper to make, typically. A lot of times it's cheaper to be made fresh than from recycled plastic. And it isn't always, it's not recyclable forever. A lot of like your plastic shopping bags, that's kind of the end. It can't be made into much else except another plastic shopping bag, or maybe put into carpet or something. So, so these are just some issues about plastic. And what I would like people to get from this is that maybe we should try to avoid plastic and not, especially, to me, it's easy to try to get some of the single-use plastic out of your lives. It can be hard about packaging, I understand that. But everybody can start kind of small. So, so anyway, that's what I would prefer people to hear this information and think about ways to avoid plastic, rather than hear this information and think, oh, it doesn't work, I give up. So, and I put down there at the bottom a podcast I actually recommend. I had a resident actually tell me about it. There's a Gimlet Media podcast called How to Save a Planet, and they did a week or two ago, this one about recycling. And it had some of the similar information than that documentary, but I found it to be, I just found it to have a lot more of a positive vibe, and kind of sharing what I prefer people to hear, and not just keep all the skepticism about the whole recycling process going. So, sorry, sometimes, let's see. Okay, so so this is our current flyer we have for our accepted items, and the key word here is accepted items. So a lot of things are recyclable, which we've said, but not everything is accepted because of different reasons, which we'll get into. But these are our basics. So you got all the paper there, cardboard cartons, plastic. Luckily, we're actually all numbers 1 through 7, Westrock will accept. So it can be the jugs, the exception we'll talk about is styrofoam. So styrofoam takeout containers should not be put in. And the plastic bags in general, just keep those out. Glass jars, bottles, and then aluminum cans and foil pans, and you can recycle aluminum foil too. So that's the basics. And some people, that's all they need to know. But other people, they want to know more details. They have more questions after seeing that. So I'm going to go over some things. Here's the first thing. I've mentioned before, as we saw on that conveyor belt, the staff has to try to empty those bags out as they come on the conveyor. So, so please do not bag your recyclables. That just causes issues. The only exception is shredded paper, and that kind of goes back to that picture of the floor. So we actually, they want you to recycle your shredded paper, but they want it to stay contained. It will just fly everywhere. So, so they do actually ask shredded paper to be, if you're going to recycle it in your bin, put it in a plastic bag that they can see through and see what it is, and they will pull that off separate into a pile for shredded paper. So, but otherwise, please recycle and keep your items loose. If you have a small 18-gallon bin, I know it's hard because so much is recyclable these days, but you know, consider trying to get a cart or an additional bin or something like that, or even using, check with your hauler, but I know with the city, you can put another container of your own right next to it, and they'll collect both. All right, plastic. Talked about plastic a little bit, but they all have these numbers on them. I mentioned it so briefly that you could see numbers 1 through 7 printed on plastic. If you watch any of those documentaries, you'll see and hear about why there's a recycle symbol around that. The plastic industry would not take it off. It does not tell you anything about recyclability. It tells you what type of plastic resin it is made of. So some cities will talk numbers and say, oh, like I kind of remember years ago here in Louisville, we could only recycle 1s and 2s. So then it would help you because you could look and say, oh, I can recycle that. Now, styrofoam, as I mentioned, is an exception. It's a number 6, but it doesn't go because it's in the foam form. But yeah, the numbers are just what type of plastic it is. Now, why are some items not accepted? So one, it might be the markets. So if you are a facility and you're collecting all this material, but nobody wants to buy it, then you probably don't want to be collecting it anymore because what are you going to do with it? And if you end up having to landfill stuff, you're paying to have it landfilled. So it'd be better to pay less or to have it bring in some money, depending on the items. So, so that's some facilities around the country, they're different. If they have a different market, they might not be able to collect all the plastic like we take, or you know, maybe they don't want the foil roasting pans. I don't know. So the other thing is safety. I put the motor oil bottle there. Motor oil is a household hazardous waste, and even though it comes in a plastic bottle, it's not really a material you can rinse. So we say like that kind of thing, like keep it out. Even if you think it's empty, it's never really empty, and it would kind of ruin the other materials. And you know, scrap metal, it's always like scrap metal can bring in some money if you take it to a recycling facility on your own, where it's just dropping off metal. Here at this facility, it could cause some major problems. We don't want to have any safety issues. Tanglers, those plastic bags are considered tanglers because they get wrapped up in the machines. That's that photograph on the left. People, they were shut down, and so they had to get in there and clean out some of those gears. Other materials like Christmas lights and extension cords, garden hoses, chains, you know, again, you might think, well, it's made of plastic or it's made of metal, I should be able to recycle it, but no, it is bad for the facility. And then it may be cost effectiveness. I think I put that one on there because of styrofoam, because styrofoam is mostly air. We don't have the equipment it takes to densify that material. We don't have that here locally. And then if they collected it separately or got it to be separate, shipping it is like shipping air. So it's just not cost effective to take it. So that's, you know, you can hear all different cities taking on that issue in a different way. Some cities get that densifier and they start a drop-off point. Some cities are trying to ban it from restaurants completely. So at this point, we're just in the middle, just saying, you know, try to avoid it if you can, but otherwise it has to go in the trash, unfortunately. Labels and lids, people ask about that all the time. Leave your labels on. It's fine to leave your labels on. If they're paper and you want to get that separated, you can, but it's not a big deal to recycle anything with its label. Lids are a little tricky. If you have a plastic container, it's best to kind of crush that container and put the lid back on. That helps. If you remember back to that picture of the floor, there were a lot of lids there. So that helps us make sure that those lids get recycled. Metal and glass, though, that's a little different. You can actually just recycle those detached from each other. Oh, and then I put a note here because every once in a while I hear someone say they're collecting plastic caps for the Caps for Bench program. They can, you know, schools and churches will collect them separately. So if you're saving them for that, that's great. Do that. To clean or not clean, a lot of people ask that question. You don't really have to. This is coming straight from Westrock themselves. They, of course, want you to not recycle things with food in it. So, you know, scrape out as much as you can. You don't, if you're not trying to throw out food and waste your money, you know, obviously you're going to try to eat all the yogurt out of the yogurt container or whatever, and then it's good to go. You can rinse things. I collect mine in a plastic kind of waste container, and, you know, I've noticed if I have a soup can, if I don't rinse it, a lot of times it sort of oozes out into my can and I have to clean it later. So I will rinse certain things because of that. But it's not that if you choose not to do that, you are not ruining recycling. Just make sure you get all the food out that you can. Pizza boxes tend to be kind of a funny thing. You hear some places saying, you know, never recycle pizza boxes that have grease on them. And it's like, well, what pizza box doesn't have grease on it? Westrock did their own study because they were working with a pizza business, a big pizza company, they wanted to work with them on recycling and to prove that, yes, we want all the pizza boxes. And they did a study and found that it had no issue. Grease in the pizza boxes had no issue at the paper mills. So please recycle pizza boxes here in Louisville. Sometimes there's a weird liner and it gets pretty icky. You can throw that out, but the box itself should be fine, even if it looks like that in the picture. And so we did I just kind of wanted to share this. We did a partnership a few years ago about takeout containers. So the Food Service Packaging Institute was trying to get a lot of facilities around the country to jump on board and say that they commit to recycling takeout containers. So Westrock was approached and they committed to recycling takeout containers, except of course styrofoam didn't make the list, but everything else did. So I think that's really important for people to know, especially right now when we're not eating in restaurants like we used to near as much, and a lot of this food's being taken home even more than before. So remember that you can recycle those takeout containers. Again, you want them to be empty. And again, styrofoam isn't accepted. I really appreciate a restaurant if I get takeout and it doesn't come in styrofoam. But yes, put those in your bin. We are also ordering a lot. If we weren't before, we were already before, and now it's even more. We're doing a lot of online orders, Amazon especially. So of course the boxes are always reusable or recyclable. And I get all kinds of different envelopes. This plastic, white and blue plastic bubble envelope, those are accepted back at Kroger with your plastic bags if you choose. The paper one there, like in the yellow paper that has plastic inside it, there's not much you can do besides reuse that one because it's a mix of material. And then there's some that's not pictured that are all paper. And it says on the package it's an all paper envelope. If you open it up and look at it, there's some weird white stuff in there. But it is confirmed that that kind of just sort of dissolves in the pulping process. So it's okay to recycle as paper. And then air pillows that come in as in your packages, you can bust those up and also put those in with your Kroger plastic bags at the store. I did a No Waste Wednesday yesterday about meal kits. I've had some and they're fun, and but man, the trash, there's a lot. So again, cardboard boxes and dividers are obviously reusable or recyclable. There's a lot of ingredients that come in plastic bags. It's best just to bundle that all up and give it back to into the Kroger plastic shopping bag recycling. Some of the padding there at the top right picture, that is, I think, considered all paper, and they would take that. And I made a post, you can see it on our No Waste Blue Facebook as well, with a photo of one that I took from my brother from Home Chef, and it looked kind of foamy, but it said it was all plastic, #1 plastic, and I confirmed that that is recyclable at curbside and in drop-off recycling. And then there's the ice packs that they say you're supposed to, the companies say, to empty the contents when it's thawed out into trash, and then you can recycle the bag part back at the participating stores. Of course, they're reusable. But if you get these things so often, sometimes you get overrun with the ice packs. But that's just something to consider, is the amount of waste it produces to begin with if you choose to get a meal kit. And then there is our app. It's Recycle Coach. So hopefully, if you haven't heard of it, download that app, play around with it. There's a search tool so you can type in anything. I'm constantly trying to make sure it's up to date and it's consistent, says everything good. But it's specific to Louisville. If you ever see anything that looks off, let me know. But if you live in the Urban Services District and have city waste collection, you also have a calendar that shows your collection schedule. Otherwise, you'll just see things on there like our pop-up drop-off events, these no waste webinars, and things that I can add to the calendar just to show it's available and happening. So that's basically it. That was a lot of information. So I definitely want to open up if anybody has any specific questions or concerns or anything. We'll use the chat box or the Q&A. Let me open that up. If anybody has any, we'd love to answer. Oh, I lost it.
Karen, there's a question about slick papers for magazines or coupons.
Yes, those are accepted. I know it's hard because sometimes we have memories of years ago when recycling technology was different, and we remember like someone said we weren't supposed to recycle, waxy or glossy paper, but that is not true anymore. So yes, keep all of your magazines in. You can recycle magazines. You can recycle those ads and coupons that come in the newspaper. Good question. Anybody else have anything? if you are on Nextdoor, I like to post a poll question every Wednesday. And then I kind of modify it a little bit just to post onto Facebook and Twitter. I see here someone's asking about batteries and light bulbs, and those are going to be considered that household hazardous waste. Excuse me. And you can take, well, it kind of depends on what kind actually for all of that. LED and compact fluorescent and fluorescent tube light bulbs can all be recycled at our hazardous waste drop-off. We call it has-been. It's at 7501 Grade Lane. And actually, most hardware stores like Lowe's and Home Depot will also take the compact fluorescent bulbs and recycle those. Those have some mercury in them, so that's the main reason we want to make sure those get disposed properly. Batteries, on the other hand, household alkaline batteries are environmentally safe for the landfill. So you could theoretically throw them away if you use a lot and want to collect them all together. And then when you make a trip to the has-been, we do recycle them there. You can recycle, it's very important to recycle lithium batteries because they're the ones that are hazardous and can cause fires. So both of these things you never want to put in your regular recycling, and like the mercury fluorescent bulbs, don't put those in regular trash either. But you know, it's up to you. Batteries Plus stores will also take recycle batteries and bulbs, but they may charge you on some stuff, specifically alkaline batteries. They're just really expensive to recycle, and there's just not much material in it. So, so that's why they'll charge you a fee. I see receipts. Yes, it's all accepted as paper. It's small, so you never know. And then there's some weird type of paper out there. It's been a while since I read about it. Thermal something or other. So there are some receipts. If you start reading, it's actually kind of scary that we even touch it. But a lot of it is BPA free at this point. But yeah, you can recycle receipts. Waxy cartons. Waxy, yes. When you say that, it makes me think of just like a milk carton. Currently, our facility does not take what they call aseptic or shelf-stable cartons. Think chicken broth. That's something that I've started buying in, or I try to buy them in cans, chicken broth or beef broth, because I know I can recycle that can, but the carton is like the same thing a juice box is from, and they don't accept those at our facility. If they're there, again, you're not ruining things. If you thought, oh, I thought I could recycle a juice box, you know, just because you did that doesn't mean that you've ruined anything, but it will get sorted out, you know, and thrown into the trash anyway. So that's part of the reason we want you to recycle right, so that in the long run, we're not causing any problems at the facility and we're not giving them any more material to have to throw away when we can just do it first. So, and then of course there are some issues like safety or food. Definitely want to keep food out because it could ruin some recycling. Plastic with 6 and up. So it really only goes to 7. The 6 is tricky if it's the foam kind of, like it's polystyrene. If it's foam, like think of an egg carton that's foam, or just your basic generic foam cup, takeout cup, that's styrofoam. So they don't take, again, you're not going to ruin it by putting in there, but it's not going to get recycled. It's going to get thrown in the trash. So we want to keep styrofoam out. Number 7 they accept, but that's kind of the miscellaneous category for plastic. So I do know once it ends up at the facility, the plastic facility in Missouri, occasionally they have trouble recycling the number 7s. So It's not against the rules, and it's very possible that it does get recovered, but sevens are kind of the toss up there. But we would rather try to get it going and recycled since they accept it. Thanks for these questions. Anything else? Again, Recycle Coach has a fun what goes where tool, so you can type in anything and kind of read about it. It tells you if you should recycle it or trash it or reuse, maybe more of a reuse item. Our top searched item is furniture. People, I guess, always need to know what to do with their old furniture. Okay, Recycle Coach is accepting your address. Sorry, that was sent privately, but I said it out loud. I'm going to ask about the address. Does it happen to have a directional prefix? East something street? If so, we've had some duplicates in the system that have caused us problems. So that are just written a different way without the directional, and I would say try that one. Otherwise, if you want to send me privately your email address and your actual address, we can communicate about that later. And let's see, used paper napkins and Kleenex, none of that's going to be acceptable for recycling. It could go, as long as it's not too greasy, it could go in a backyard compost bin, which, by the way, at the end of the month, Diane's going to be talking to everybody about backyard composting. So if that is something you're not too familiar with yet, but might be interested in, we do have we're going to be selling, well, we are selling, we have some currently, and we're going to get more compost bins that are sold at an affordable price because we order them in bulk. So if you're interested in that, be sure to register for the backyard composting class. Let's see. All right, Diane, do you see oh no, I don't think she does. I'm gonna write down your information, Janice, and I'll get back to you separately on that one. We'll make sure you get squared away. Any other questions?
I do like the Recycle Coach app. It really is very helpful, and it helps with questions I might have right at the time of cleaning something out, so I don't have to get on the computer or anything like that. It's right there on my cell phone. So it makes it really super convenient.
And if anybody likes to use their Echo Dot or Alexa, I don't want to say it too loud or she might hear me right now, but we like ours here at our house. And you can actually ask it to ask Recycle Coach. If you pair it up with the app, you can say, Echo Dot, ask Recycle Coach if something is recyclable, and it will tell you, which is pretty cool. All right. Any other questions?